对对对，我们家住在河北冉州。
Tonight, in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinox Television, water crisis hits the center region of Cameroon. We take a look at the day-to-day ordeals of Yaoundé residents. And also in this newscast, we visit Buda, that's in the Baboutus division of the west region of the country that has so far been ranked the most dirtiest town in the west region of the country. Plus, Cam has returned to the far north region of the country where Boko Haram militants exchange bullets with the Nigerian Army. These are headlines, details and more just in a moment. Good evening to you once again, viewers. We thank you so much for joining us in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinox Television. Let's begin right away in the nation's capital, Yaoundé, as we announced in the headlines. Some inhabitants of the nation's capital have been for days without water. The situation has been going on for weeks now, but it may be affecting the population, but not dealers in containers. They are making more profits in the midst of the crisis. Our Yaoundé-based correspondent Roland Akong tells us more.
Vendors of containers for water are making brisk business now in Yaoundé. With irregular water cuts in the nation's capital, this vendor says inhabitants rush after containers to reserve the precious liquid.
Sinon, quand même, le marché des bidons ici, quand même, ça passe parce que depuis là, il y a aussi des coupures d'eau.
This inhabitant of the Damas neighborhood has just bought a 5,000-liter container for water at 400,000 francs CFA. He tells us that the container is meant to reserve water as there's been no water in Damas for the past 7 years.
À Damas, depuis 6 ans, il n'y a pas d'eau. Pratiquement 6-7 ans, il n'y a pas d'eau.
He is shocked, embarrassed and surprised that there is no water in Yaoundé. The demand for water per day in Yaoundé stands at over 300,000 cubic meters. The supply is just 100,000 cubic meters. Government has announced the increase soon of water supply in Yaoundé, but it's just 25,000 cubic meters, what many critics consider as far, far away from what is required to quench the thirst of Yaoundé inhabitants.
That's Roland Akong, Yaoundé-based correspondent. Ending that report, we stay with you, Roland, still in the nation's capital, Yaoundé. We talked this time around about the Ministry of Public Works that has so far admitted failure on the part of the government as regards the construction of the dual carriage route on Yaoundé to Douala. Patrice Ambassador said no preliminary studies were carried out before the contract was awarded. Roland Akong tells us more.
In 2010, Patrice Ambassador, Minister of Public Works, announced the construction in 2013 of a dual carriage route from Yaoundé to Douala with financing from the Chinese. 2013 came and is gone with no dual carriage route from Yaoundé to Douala. Ambassador here explains that the project could not take off because there were no preliminary studies.
Pour que l'entreprise fasse convenablement les études et que lorsqu'elle va démarrer les travaux.
How did the government obtain funding from the project without studies? There are dangerous potholes along the Yaoundé-Bafoussam highway. Whereas in 2013, President Biya disbursed 100 billion francs CFA as special fund for some road projects, including the filling of potholes along the Yaoundé-Bafoussam highway. Minister Patrice Ambassador says the amount was not enough and that more money is required to fill the potholes along the Yaoundé-Bafoussam highway and to carry out other road projects in the country.
Simplement que l'enveloppe n'a pas été suffisante et nous n'avons pas pu reprendre en continu de Yaoundé à Bafoussam.
More road projects were announced by Mr. Minister for 2014.
It is a road linking Cameroon to Congo via Samalima. It is the road linking Cameroon to Chad in the section Dabanga-Kurseri and Dabanga-Marwa. That is, we have a lot of work like that.
Let's wait and see if they will be realized.
Just some of the projects that have remained unfulfilled, some of the unfulfilled promises by the government of Cameroon. As we announced in the headlines, reports from the far north region of the country say that CAM has returned to the Mayo-Sawa division after Nigerian Islamist Boko Haram militants exchanged bullets with the Nigerian army. That was Wednesday yesterday. Though the fighting took place on the other side of the Nigerian border, most Cameroonians remained indoors for fear of being killed. So far, Cameroonian army is said to have been putting things in order. The governor of the far north region of the country, Awafonka Augustine, has called on the population to remain calm. We surely shall be coming back to that in a subsequent newscast. Here in the economic capital, Douala, medical officials have said children between the ages of 0 to 10 years are the most affected with poliomyelitis. They were speaking today during the launching of the campaign against the disease. Pamela Ndukong tells us more.
Campaign agents will be largely deployed to the various neighborhoods of the city. Along with their vaccination kits, the agents will move from door to door. The vaccination will also go on in schools and other health centers. Poliomyelitis exists in different forms. The severe type is being consulted this time around. Victims were recorded last year in the West region, 4 cases in all around the country.
The 4 cases of poliomyelitis that have been confirmed in the West region, there were children, some of the children were around 10 years. So it means that for the past 10 years, some babies have been missing the vaccination. That is why we target 0 to 10 years. Yes, in the contrary of the previous campaigns which were targeting 0 to 5 years.
Poliomyelitis needs to be completely eradicated from Cameroon. Officials aim at recording 100% success with the ongoing campaigns. Several hundreds of children are expected to receive the vaccine in the space of 3 months.
For the littoral region here, we have the first series is from today to Sunday, from the 16th to the 19th of January, and the target is 0 to 10 years old. The second series will be from the 6th to the 9th of February of this year, and the same target 0 to 10 years old. And the last series will be from the 28th February to the 4th March of this year, and this time we will regress the target from 0 to 5 years.
Only 2 drops of the liquid suspension are administered per child. This phase of the campaign does not exclude any child. Even those who have already received a vaccine against polio need to take the oral suspension. It's the severe type of poliomyelitis that needs to be eradicated.
Now, elections of staff representatives in public and private enterprises took place across the country. That was yesterday after it was postponed in the year 2013. The newly elected staff representative would for the next 2 years act as a mediator between the employees and their employers. Let's take a look at the role of staff representatives with Jacques Ekwe-Kinge.
Having been postponed in 2013, elections of staff representatives in the different companies and firms around the national territory were fixed for the month of January 2014 by a ministerial decree, a decree in which the Minister of Labour and Social Security warned companies who will defer the elections of workers' representatives. The elections conducted in the national territory on the 15th of January 2014 saw some companies voting for a staff representative for the very first time, while for others it was just a routine that had to see new persons at the helm of the workers' union. The staff representative in an enterprise have very specific roles they play apart from being the bridge between the employer and the employee. Mr. Augustin Lemaleux is a member of the Syndicate of Council Workers in Vuri.
D'abord, le délégué du personnel dans une entreprise.
A staff representative should be a person with a high moral rectitude. His role is to act as a mediator between the employer and the employee of an enterprise. he shouldn't have any personal affliction with the employer.
The staff representative also have a more demanding role to play in the functioning of the enterprise.
A staff representative uses tactical dialogue to channel workers' problems to hierarchy on issues affecting the company. He also has to create an atmosphere of conviviality between the employer and the employee.
It should be noted that the ministerial text has fixed the duration of the staff representatives for 2 years, after which fresh elections will be conducted.
Jacques Kinge, they're taking a look at the role of staff representatives that were elected yesterday across the country. As we announced in the headlines, the town of Buda, that's in the Babutus division of the West region of Cameroon, has again maintained the last position on the classification of the cleanest town in the West region of Cameroon. Household waste are deposited at random in the town, and the markets are not better at all. While chairing a cleanup campaign exercise on Thursday, that was last week, the mayor for Buda Council, Mr. Ngula, said efforts are being put in place to improve on the hygiene and sanitation condition of the town of Buda. He said individual efforts at keeping the town clean was insufficient, and announced the arrival of a waste disposing company, or a waste disposal company, in the months ahead. The many number of the abandoned buildings have also been blamed for the dirty nature of the town of Buda. We shall be coming back to that in a subsequent newscast. Meantime, we now take a look at the deplorable learning conditions of students of Government High School Elok Batindi, that's in the south region of the country. The school is in need of teaching staff as well as adequate infrastructure. Ambe Fokwa tells us more.
Cameroon boasts of more than 70% of the population above the age of 15 years of age being capable of basic reading and writing, which would insinuate the country has schools with standard infrastructure. Lycée de Elok Batindi, in the Ocean division of the South region, is a challenge to the notion Cameroon can offer quality education to youths. The school is plagued with a serious deficiency in teaching staff, though it is a government school and manages to operate with 80% of its instructors being part-time teachers who are not regularly present due to inconsistent payment. Students, particularly in Form 4 and 5, are faced with the highest difficulty, along with other classes which must prepare for end-of-year state exams like the BPC. Students of the lycée complain of lack of basic infrastructure, ranging from lack of benches in classrooms to no water and unsanitary latrine toilet facilities, which several complain of having procured infections from their usage. Forced to manage with the difficult situation, youths must walk for several kilometers to find water which they can use to do basic cleaning, which results in the general uncleanliness of the school. The desire for an academic career under these conditions proves to be an uphill task, where only those who are capable of persevering through the worst obstacles remain focused and succeed. This situation is common throughout the nation, where often the phrase in the pidgin lingua franca is "you have to tie hard." But the ultimate question behind such poor infrastructure in a nation with such stability and wealth as Cameroon is, should children really suffer to receive their right to education?
Now we take you right away to news out of Cameroon, an update on what's happening at the Central African Republic. The Central African Republic's National Transitional Council has concluded that the country's transitional president will be elected. That's going to be on Saturday, on January 18th, 2014. And the information emerged at a session that took place that was yesterday. 16 have been selected for the position, who would hold a temporary mandate until February 2015. When elections would finally take place. The criteria for selection bans anyone who has so far served any militia or rebel group or has been sentenced for theft or abuse of trust. The interim president will be elected by the 134 members of the council. That's going to be on Saturday, 18th of January 2014. Remaining news out of Cameroon, voting in Egypt, that's on Tuesday, which took place on Tuesday and Wednesday this week, has concluded with the approval of the new constitution. Behind the constitution's adoption, the country's senior army is expected to declare his candidature for the presidency. Let's have more with Franz Van Kat.
A political rally in a rural town on the outskirts of Cairo. a few dozen people are coming to hear why they should cast their ballots this week. The ultra-conservative Salafi an-Noor party are the only Islamist party urging a yes vote in the referendum, and they've been campaigning countrywide.
I believe that the Egyptian people going out to vote is a very big step to achieve security and stability for Egyptian society.
And here, it seems, they're preaching to the converted.
It's a constitution that provides everything for the Egyptian citizen, and we want the country to move forward.
Across Cairo, there's an abundance of posters calling for a yes vote, paid for by anonymous businessmen and political parties who back the army-installed government. The voices calling publicly for a no vote are few and far between, and even then, the authorities have been cracking down on them.
There have been cases of people from the Revolutionary Front being arrested. They are now in the regime's jails because they went into the streets to say no to the Constitution, giving out stickers and posters saying no to the Constitution.
Human rights campaigners find this extremely troubling.
In the context of the broader crackdown on expression that is seen as supportive of the Muslim Brotherhood, or even on cases where people were simply expressing opposition to the military or to the current regime, it's clear that the overall climate is not one which protects dissent.
Egypt's very popular army chief, General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, is calling on Egyptians to come out and vote in huge numbers. In return, he says, he may consider standing in the country's upcoming presidential elections.
And still in news out of Cameroon, the Vatican will face an inquiry for the first time by the commission set up under the United States at Geneva. That was expected to be today. The inquiry would investigate accusations of sexual assault by priests of the Roman Catholic on children. More once again with Franz Benkat.
Pope Francis has promised to tackle child sex abuse within the Catholic Church head-on. Now the Vatican is gearing up for a grilling, for the first time answering to the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child. A Holy See delegation is in Geneva to defend itself against allegations the Church enabled the rape of thousands of children by protecting paedophile priests. News that was welcomed by abuse victims.
I think it's time for the Church to stop this secrecy. I believe the Church puts too much its reputation before the victims and the pain of this abuse that we carry. So that's why I was so excited when I heard about this final meeting between the Vatican representatives and the UN.
But a Vatican spokesman said church sex abuse crimes committed around the world must be dealt with by authorities in individual countries.
Some of the questions that are proposed for the discussion are about specific cases in different lands. Then we say are terrible crimes, it is true, but the competence to prosecute and to condemn, to proceed against these crimes is of the authorities of this land.
The Church acknowledges more than 4,000 cases of sexual abuse. Last month, the Pope announced that a Vatican commission would be set up to combat abuse by priests. The UN Committee will issue its final observations and non-binding recommendations on the 5th of February.
And that brings us to the end of this segment of the news. Up next is Talking Point. Tonight we have a civil engineer and also a politician to tell us about the ordeals of those whose houses were destroyed along the Boulevard de la République that's going to be extended in the days ahead. Good evening to you, Mr. Tubo Fabian. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Talking Point.
Good evening, Mimi, and thanks for inviting me to be live on Talking Point tonight.
We should be thanking you for coming. The extension of the Boulevard de la République, like I earlier said, is still a bitter pill to swallow to some of those whose houses were destroyed for the construction exercise. Another problem is that agents of the Douala Urban Council have continued to increase the demarcation line that was initially earmarked to the detriment of the inhabitants. What's your immediate reaction as far as that's concerned?
As you rightly said, the population of Bepanda, they are undergoing an expropriation. The that was has been enticed due to the decree, that's the Prime Ministerial decree of 12th of August 2013. And as you rightly said, this initial demarcation is not being followed because the limit has been extended by the agents of the Douala City Council. And up to now, they have not actually come out to communicate, to give reasons why this extension is being done. But we are speculating on principles that maybe this itinerary that was initially demarcated, maybe they have foreseen that the road passing through this trajectory will maybe encounter some difficulties. Maybe there are some areas that will need a lot of backfilling, or maybe there are some marshal areas. And then now the government has said that maybe for the road to follow this trajectory, it will be more costful. Maybe they are trying to alternate this initial demarcation. But for now, all these are speculation. We don't know why the initial demarcation is not being followed. And of course, it brings to question the studies that were being made.
Initial studies that were normally carried out.
That are normally carried out before such expropriation is being done. You know, in Cameroon, we have the expropriation law of 1972 that was being amended in 1985 and promulgated into law. That was in 1987 by a presidential decree that clearly states that in such a situation for general interest, when there's a project like the Boulevard of La République, that's a road being to be constructed, it is for general interest, and the population have to be compensated. So we see there have been a lot of
problems as far as the
compensation procedure is being concerned. It's more of a cacophony surrounding the compensation procedure, because the initial people actually they received their compensation, and then now they have come in now to break down houses that were not initially in this limit, and then now the people now they're coming out now to revindicate for their own compensation. You know, as they rightly put it, all land belongs to the state. But who is the state? The state is being made up of these people that are revindicated for their compensation.
And they need their compensations, of course.
Yeah, they need their compensation because they need their compensation because the houses have been broken down. These are people that have been occupying this particular position for more than 40 years, and then now they come in to break their houses. Where do we expect them to go? That is why the law was being brought up, and you know, initially the commission that actually studied the expropriation process should be questioned too, because it means that there's a lot of...
Of course, a project of such magnitude, it means that there must have been a problem or a mistake, probably, I should say, on the part of the contractors or the experts that actually carried out the feasibility studies, of course, I should say. So now, is it normal, or how possible could it be that those who carried out the preliminary studies didn't do it properly?
Certainly, they did not do it properly, because now, if they come in to overlap the demarcation limit, it means that there is a problem. Because initially, during the presentation of this project, that was in around 17th of March 2010, when this project was first presented, the company that did the studies, I don't want to call the name here, presented a project showing that this road will be made up of 4 lanes, with some 2 special lanes that will be used by buses, and these lanes were being, the dimensions were well indicated, and which gave that initiative for the demarcation, for the limit to be traced. But now they have come in to like overlap the demarcation at certain areas. And then they have not come out to actually communicate to the people why all this overlaps it. Because normally, we know we're in a country where communication is a problem, because it's a simple problem. They ought to have come out and then tell the people that initially this is what was previewed, but along as the work has started, we have discovered that if the road has to follow maybe this trajectory, there will be problems. Maybe we'll have to do a lot of backfilling here and there. Maybe we'll have to, the other places are marshy areas, will become costly for the government, and because of that reason we have decided to maybe extend the demarcation limit, or for that reason we have decided to maybe alternate the trajectory. We could have come out and communicate to the people, but that so far they have not done. And it has allowed the population to be in a situation of a dilemma where everybody is saying its own. Now you see people are even saying that they are just simply breaking down this house so that when the road will pass, there will be enough plot for them to sell, maybe to petrol stations and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of stories surrounding this issue, and then nobody is coming out. Nobody this is following the expropriation law, as I already said. The divisional officer for Warri, who is the chairman, of course, the chairman of the board that usually sits to study the expropriation situation like this ought to have come out and communicate. You see, the other day the people were on strike because they have not been compensated, but their houses have been broken down, and they need this compensation.
And that's almost the same thing that happened on the dual carriage highway along Douala and Yaoundé. We saw the minister so far admitted failure on the part of the government, saying that preliminary studies were not carried out. This is becoming very common with projects that are earmarked for developmental projects in the country. What are the dangers when proper studies are not carried out on huge projects like that?
You know, the negative impacts, they are high, because when you have a project like as you rightly said, the extension of the Yaoundé Douala Highway, the extension of the Boulevard of the Republic, it's a heavy project, and for such projects to be carried out, you need to have good preliminary studies, because these preliminary studies, it is from the studies that we usually know the cost of the project. It's from the preliminary studies that will know who is going to be affected. It's from the preliminary studies that will know the benefits of the project. And if these studies are not well done, in the long run, during the execution phase of the project, you will see problems coming up. This problem that is coming up now is still at the preliminary level. Who knows when they will go into the construction? Maybe we'll find some other problems coming up. It puts to question those that do the preliminary studies on contracts in the country, and you know the cacophony that usually surrounds also this passing out of contracts also poses a problem. Are these contracts given out to studies office that are competent? There's a question mark. Are they just being given out to some studies of offices because of maybe
it's actually a very big problem. It's actually a very big problem.
Due to nepotism, due to tribalism, due to maybe they have given bribe and here, and then now they give them a heavy project to study, and the study that they bring out, they're not realistic. See the case of the case that we are looking at now. Initially, they said, okay, this is where the road will pass. Now they've come, they say the trajectory is too small, you have to extend. And it is a problem because following the expropriation, before land is being expropriated, studies have been made, the number of people to be compensated, the amount to be shared out to the people is being established. Now, these people that are coming means that another study has to be carried out, another money has to be looked.
We even saw people sleeping in open air because they don't have
another study
where
has to be carried out. Another sum of money has to be established and then being shared out to these people. It is a problem. It is a problem in this country that should be well looked into.
So what should be done?
What should be done is simple. Projects should be given out to the right people. The round peg in the round hole, a square peg in a square hole, a triangular peg in a triangular hole, and we'll not have these problems that we are facing now. Because if this project was well studied, they could have taken into consideration. It's true that when it comes to such heavy projects, during the realization phases, most of the time the preliminary studies are not usually realistic, because we are saying that they are preliminary studies.
Because it can happen
to anybody. It can happen to anybody, and during the realization phase, we see there are problems that can actually come up, but not like in this case. This case, it is a case that it shows a lot of incompetence, because we are talking about a trajectory that was being traced, that this is where the road will pass, and then now they have come, they are like just changing, increasing, and saying that maybe we'll put a roundabout here. Was this roundabout not initially on the studies? So those are questions that are being posed, and people need to answer these questions.
People need to answer them, of course, and those to answer the questions as far as the construction of the Boulevard de la République is concerned is, of course, the Douala Urban Council that's admitting that preliminary or effective preliminary studies were actually not carried out. We thank you so much, Mr. Tuvo Fabien, for joining us tonight on Talking Point, and we hope to have you some other time again.
Thank you, Mimi. It's always a pleasure to be live on the program.
A pleasure. The pleasure is mine as well. To our viewers, we thank you so much for joining us. Wishing you a blessed stay in the company of our programs. Good evening to you once again.